Hello friends, we already discussed about Kubernetes, histories of Kubernetes and advantages, architecture of Kubernetes. So now we are going to see how to install the Kubernetes and then how to create the Kubernetes cluster. Let's see now. So for that I need one to install the Kubernetes. I need one client server where we can install and install the Kubernetes. Using that server, how to create the Kubernetes cluster we are going to see. So I am going to create in the AWS. So I am going into logged in the AWS console. I am going to check the instance. If any other existing instance is there, if it is not, then I will create it. Right. So I am going to create the new instance here for K Kubernetes client. I am going to mention this client server as Kubernetes cluster. So and then now I am going to use Ubuntu. In Ubuntu I am not going to use the latest one. I am just going to select the the older one. Why? Because sometimes then for the new one the packages will not work properly because it doesn't have the support. And then I'm going to create one key pair to log in this server. Okay, right, it is downloaded. Then I already have created security group which can allow all the port. So for the testing purpose I am giving the all the ports open, but in real time it will be vary. So we need to create the security group here. We need to allow the respective ports only. For safer side, so here by default it is giving 8 GB disk space. For safer side I am going to create 20 GB. So till 30 GB it is free only. So I am going to create now. Launch, click on launch instance. It is created. Then go to connect instance. Now I am connecting the putty, opening the putty, and then here you can see SSH client is there. In that you can copy this host name, public DNS name, paste it under session. I am going to change the appearance a little bit so it will be more comfortable, and then I am going to provide the key which I created for this. So I have directly created the key for the putty tool only, so I am not going to convert this. So if you are creating PEM key, then we need to use the putty gen tool where I can convert the key, right? So since we are using the Ubuntu machine, the username is Ubuntu. So if you are installing Red Hat, it will be easy to user. So same like that, whatever the distribution you are using, the user name depends upon it. So now I am changing it to root user, switching to root user. Then let's see, so here if you want to, means we are going to install the Kubernetes application first, packages. So for that, Kubernetes installation in Ubuntu, right? So we are going to use the cops and kubectl here. So we have other packages also that we will see, but first in this session we are going to see use cops and kubectl. Using that package, how we are going to uh, create the cluster, we are going to see. Here we need to use first cops installation, right? So I'm going to search it in the Google, like cops installation on the Linux. So now you can see this URL, cops.6.k8s.io. Go to this URL, and in the right side you can see Linux, Mac OS, Windows. Which type of OS are you going to use? I'm going to use the Linux. For the Linux, you can see this commands. I'm going to use the commands one by one. So first I'm going to download the cops here. So it is downloading, it will take some time. So right, it is downloaded. Now you can see this here, but it doesn't have the executable permission. Also we need to move it to user bin local here. Okay, so first I am giving the executable permission for this cops. So next you can see this here. If you don't know what to do, here it is showing the step-by-step command. So now I'm going to move this cops to user local bin, right? So now it is moved. You can see here it will not be there. It is moved to user local bin. It is moved, right? The same like that. Now we need to do the kubectl installation. So in Google we can type kubectl installation on Linux. Now you will see, can go to this. Also I'm just checking whether this kubectl available in the same URL. Sorry, right? So now here you can see, here it is not showing any kubectl, right? So I'm going to use this URL, kubernetes.io. So here I am going to use this link, install kubectl binary with the curl on Linux. So this is the one. So I know that my architecture of this machine is 64-bit, so I'm just selecting this. Okay, so depends upon this, the command and package will vary. Okay, package will vary. So I'm going to use that 64-bit. Downloading it now, same what we did for cops. Now you can see it is kubectl is downloaded, but it doesn't have the executable permission. So now I am giving the executable permission. right? The same like that, we are going to move this kubectl to user local bin. Right now you can see user local bin. So cops and kubectl is installed now successfully, right? So here I have made the step by step commands. Why? Because if we are doing any changes, means if we are missing any command, the configuration will not work, the setup will not work properly. So it's better when you are going to install or something, uh, always the documentation is recommended one in real time also. If you are going to do something, we need to raise some change request. In that we need to mention the documentation what we are going to do, including the commands. So I'm simply made that in my notepad. So here, as I mentioned already, cops and kubectl is downloaded, and it is executable permission have been assigned, and then it is moved to user local bin. And now what I'm going to do, I am going to set the IAM user in AWS console. So okay, first we'll see why we need IAM user. So we are going to create the cluster. So as you guys maximum guys know that cluster means it is master slave concept. So one master node will be there, and the slave node will be more than one, at least one, right? So from here in CLI, what we means where we install the cops and kubectl. From here we are going to create the EC2 instance for master and slave. Here we will say as master node and worker node. Master node will be the master one, worker node will be the slave one. So here we can create minimum one and more than one also, right? We are going to see that only now. So from here it is not allowed to access the AWS commands, like see, this is an instance. If you want to see whatever the uh, S3 buckets, S3 bucket is basically for storage. So what all are the S3 buckets already available? If you want the list, it will not show you by default actually. Why? Because this is like a simple server. So from here to your AWS console we need some access. For that only we are going to create IAM user. Okay, so for that only we are going to create IAM user. Before creating the IAM user, I am going to execute something called AWS space S3 list buckets. Right, so the AWS will not work. Why? Because AWS CLI is not installed, AWS command. So I'm just simply installing the AWS CLI, and before that you can see AWS install AWS CLI, it will not have the installed binary, right? So in that case what we need to do is we need to update our repository. Okay, I'm going to provide -y option for the, it will ask your confirmation. So here itself I'm giving -y. I'm just updating my packages as well as my repository. So right, it is updated, it is quick. So now I'm going to install the AWS CLI. Okay, right. So it is installing now. It will take little bit time to complete. So once we created this IAM user, we need to configure it here. So for that IAM user, we need to create the soft token. Using that token, we are going to means we need to use those token whatever we are going to create. That token will be configured in this server. So then only it is the AWS CLI will work from your server. Okay, so now you can see this. So you can see this what it is showing. AWS S3 list buckets. To see help text you can run. So it is showing like this. Okay, here also I have some, but before installing the AWS CLI, it is not showing. It is given error, right? So now you can see unable to locate credentials. You can configure credentials by running AWS configure. Okay, for this only we need soft tokens. Okay, before that we need to create the user first, IAM user. That we need to do it, that we can do it through the command line, or we can do it in the AWS console. So now I am going to show you how to create the IAM user, and that, and then for that user how we are going to create the soft token, right? So here I am going back to my AWS console. There I am searching for IAM, right? I selected IAM. Now here I already have one user, K8 user, right? So I am creating another user, K8S SR, right? K8S USR, right? I am going to create this. I am not going to check this out. Why? Because I am not going to use this user for AWS console. I am going to use this user for AWS CLI. So here you can, permission option is there. Add user to group, copy permission, then attach policies directly. So I am not going to, I don't have any groups actually. We can create group and we can add this user also. But for that group we need to provide the required access. Here for testing purpose I am going to create, assign the policies directly. First you need to provide, here you can see here you have n number of policies here. Based on this policy only the user will have the access privileges. So you can see this totally how many pages, 62 pages will be there. Okay, so I am going to give first administrator access. Then I mentioned here few things. Amazon EC2 full access. Why? Because we are going to create the EC2 instance, right? EC2 instance will be one for master and remaining for worker node, which is slave. And then 53 it is for networking, right? When we are creating the cluster, the networking also must. Why? Because then only the master and slave will communicate, right? And then Amazon S3 full access. So why? Because we are going to give the access to S3 bucket we need to create the S3 packet also. We only need to create, and then VPC is for, it is also for networking, means connection between. So here it will not show you the full things. Why? Because if I am clearing the filter also, we have a number of pages. So in which page the option is available, that only it will show you. In the first page I have selected administrator access. Now I am going to give the next. Now you will see the things like whatever you given the permission for this user, right? Now you can click on create user. So now user has been created. K8S user is our user. Now click on this user to to create the soft token, right? So I clicked on this user and then go to security credentials. Under that you can see create access key, right? So for this key will be for command line interface only. Why? Because this key is going to be created for K8S USR user. So this user also we are going to use for command line interface only, not for AWS console, something like that. So I have selected the command line interface. Why? Because we are going to give the command in our command line only. So whenever you are giving the command to create the cluster, on the time it should create the EC2 instance, it should communicate with the S3 bucket, and it will create the load balancer, so on, so right, we will see that. So for that only we are creating the IAM user. Okay, now here you can give the description if you want. I'm not going to give, just create key. Now the key has been created. One is access key, one is secret access key. You can download the file and keep it is for AWS configure. Why? Because till now the this key, means this user has been created in AWS console only. We didn't configure this user in server actually to use the AWS access, CLA access. You can see it is giving error only, right? So when we properly configured our so this is the command to configure. When we have properly configured the credentials, means IAM user with your server, then your server will have access to see the contents of your AWS resources. Okay, so I am just configuring it now, starting it, configuring the IAM user in my server. So it is asking for AWS access key. Now so here I already downloaded, right? So this is the AWS access key, right? Enter. Then I need to provide the secret access key. Enter. Now the default region name is, this region name will be where your EC2 server, means Kubernetes client server installed, right? So that region only we are going to use it when we are going to create the cluster. Okay, you can give the different region also, that's not a problem, but for testing purpose I am going to give one region only. So you can mention AP South 1 in this, AP South 1, right? Now the output format will be JSON for the Kubernetes, right? Now the IAM user has been configured. Now you can see this will give you whatever the IAM user available. See here, K8 user, K8S user, K8S user. So we have this users in our AWS console. Now the IAM user has been configured in my server to access my AWS console resources, whatever I have created, right? So now let me try this. It is not showing properly. I think the command is different, right? Okay, fine. So now anyhow it shows the IAM user list, right? So now I am going to do next thing is we are going to export few things. So when we are creating the cluster will automatically access the environmental variables. For cluster creation, Kubernetes cluster creation, we need to export some variables. Why? Because by default the installation or anything whatever we did till now, it will not create any variables. You can see here print env is the command to list the environmental variables. Here you don't have anything, so like access key, secret access key, or cluster name, something like that, and s3 state, you don't have those details till now. So now we only need to export those things, right? So you can say this is the command. So now it is asking for access key, right? Then you need to export secret access key, right? Next what I need to do is this keygen ssh keygen, we need to create the ssh keys for this user. So I'm not going to do this right now. What I'm going to do, another few things I need to export as environmental variables. So here you can see this I am going to give the same host, means this is for this K8S.local will be my cluster name, and then I'm going to this will be to mention your S3 bucket. So for that what you need to do is you need to create one S3 bucket in your AWS console. Go to this S3, then I already have one bucket. So I am going to, okay, I am going to delete this one, my K8 storage, right? For confirmation it is asking. I have deleted. Now I am creating the new one, create bucket, and then my bucket name K8 storage. K8 storage will be my bucket name. Then you can select this ACL enabled, okay, and then here you can see block all public access. So we are till now we are giving public access only in security group. While creating our client server also, we have provided all the groups only. So I am just unchecking this. Why? Because I am allowing all the port here. We are doing it for testing purpose only, right? So here you can acknowledge it. Then okay, right now click on S3 bucket has been created for storage. You can see this now. Then after that So I already exported this one, right? Three things we exported. One is access key and secret access key and cluster name, and now we are going to export the storage information. So this is the storage information I am going to give now. S3 colon slash slash K8 storage. You can see that K8 storage, right? So now what you need to do is you can create the SSH key. So now we are not going to use this SSH keys. Why? Because this will be helpful later on when we are working like deploying containers and accessing things, accessing servers inside the cluster. But now we are going to see simply the Kubernetes client server installation, where we can install the Kubernetes application. Using that server, we are going to create the Kubernetes cluster. So now we are working on already the Kubernetes client server is configured. Okay, now we are, and the Kubernetes everything is in place actually. Now we are going to create the Kubernetes cluster. For the Kubernetes cluster only, what we followed, for the Kubernetes cluster only, we created IAM user. Why? Because we are going to create the Kubernetes cluster from this CLI. So when we are creating the cluster, it is also a EC2 instance. So from this CLI, if you want to create the EC2 instance, so this CLI needs access. For that only, we configured IAM user, and we configured that IAM user in this server. We created IAM user in AWS console. That IAM user has been configured in the CLI, right? So we have exported few things. You can see SSH key gen is also done. For node authentication, need to generate SSH key, right? Now we can create the cluster. Let's see, this is the command to create the cluster. So in our case, what we mentioned, the region name, check this, EC2 AP South 1, it will be, right, Asia Pacific. So AP South 1, I am going to give 1A, right? Just I am going to remove this AP South. So 1A will be the one side of this zone, AP South 1. B will be the another zone, like that it will come. So we have multiple zones in one region, right? So this 1A will be the one of the zone. Now I'm just executing this command. Let's see, it is creating the cluster, right? If anything wrong, it will show you. Based on that error, we need to fix it, and then again we need to execute this create cluster command. So this will take some time. Now it is created. You can see the suggestion commands here. Okay, the first thing will be cops get cluster. Now you will see that cluster is created. The cluster name is K8S local and then zone in AP South 1A. Right. Now we have another T3 commands. I will do one thing. I will copy this and I will paste it in my notepad. Right. So here you can see the second line, edit this cluster with. So if you want to edit this cluster configuration, you can edit. And the third one, fourth one is very important one. Why? Because still the cluster is not configured yet completely. Okay. So this is the node instance. Node instance means worker node, which is slave. To edit those, we need to execute this command. So I am going to execute this command. So here you can see the instance group when it is created, cluster name and the zone. Okay, means this node name will be automatically, it will come like this. If you want to edit, you can edit this also. Here the machine type is T3 medium. So this T3 medium is the basic one, which is to create the cluster, Kubernetes cluster. So we already discussed while we are discussing about the architecture, means how to select the instance type. So based on the instance types only, you will come to know how many containers you are eligible to deploy in that server. Okay, so I'm just using the same thing. Then maximum size, minimum size. Here it is showing minimum size is 1 and maximum size also 1. I am going to mention this maximum size as 2, which means what it says, minimum 1 worker node, minimum 1 slave should be there, maximum 2 slaves will be there. Okay, so I am going to give the minimum 2. Okay, why? Because I am going to install 2 worker node, 2 slaves. Maximum will be 4. I am going to mention 4. Okay, now that's it. Save and exit. Then what you need to use this, edit your control plane. Control plane is nothing but your master node, which is your master of your cluster. So here we are not going to edit anything, but will show you what all are the information it has. So this command also having this machine type maximum. Sorry, this is my old one. It's not control plane. I am going to use this, right. You can see here now machine type T3 medium and maximum 1, minimum 1. I am going to use only one master. So if you want more than one master, you can edit this, but I am, in my case, I am going to use only one master. Okay, right, simple. So now we have updated some configuration here. How many worker node we need, how many slaves we need, right? Master node as it is, whatever it is having the default one will be the default one is enough for our testing. So now what you need to do is you need to update the cluster. We already created the cluster, but it is not completed yet. Why? Because means this create cluster command will give you the um, few things like how it will be it will give you the basic configuration to create the full cluster. Okay, this is the optional one, but I am going to use this here. Why? Because then only it will, you can see here, for node authentication need to generate SSH. I am going to pass this also here. Our username K8S USR, it will be, it is showing some error. Create secret. Okay, okay, so we'll see this later on, where this will be needed when we are working little bit deeper, like deploying pods under pods, when we are deploying the containers, like the time we need. But we are going to see how to configure the cluster only now. Okay, so now what I am going to do, I need to use this information, cops update cluster. Why? Because it is already created with the basic configuration, right? So but now I have updated few things, like I need two worker node, which means two slave. So I'm just updating it. In the same time, I'm checking here in the instance. You can see here only one instance is there, but once this is done, same time it will create the another instance also, which means the master and slaves. You can see here also what it will do, it will create the master and slave. For the connection, it will create security group, load balancing, and it will configure the S3 bucket. It will connect the S3 bucket which we created in the AWS console, right? It will create the subnet, everything it will do automatically. So we no need to do anything manually. So it will take some time. It will take 10 minutes. Okay, let's wait for some time to complete. Now it is created finally. See now, next set of commands it is suggesting. Here we no need to worry about the next commands. Once the command is done, it will suggest you the next commands more probably. So I'm going to use this to validate the cluster. Okay, so this will take some time to complete. So let's see how much time it will take. Here also we have mentioned the 10 minutes time, right? So let's wait for some time. So yeah, right, I want to show you a thing that you can see now. Two nodes created, worker node and one is control plane, which is master. Now, so this has been created. This is the master, these two are slave, means worker node. This is the master node. but still the configuration is not done. Correct. This has been getting filed. Why? Because maybe that SSH key has been not copied yet, so that's why it is showing this error. But let's wait for some time, no problem. Right, so now while validating the cluster, it is giving some error. Right, validation failed. For that, I just searched and I have a command. I googled it and found these answers. Okay, both issues above are fixed by running this. One is, while we are reprovisioning, means deleting the cluster and reprovisioning it, this will create this error. And then some certification issue. For this, we need to execute this command. So I'm just executing this command. Really, it worked well for me. Now I'm going to validate this cluster. So now we have the exact answer here. Output one is control plane. These all are for node app. Okay, right. And you can see this control plane one is, this is master. These two are nodes. Fine. The same like that, I am going to execute some other commands also to check this. This is to list the nodes. This is the command to list the nodes using kubectl. This is showing the readiness of my nodes. Ready, and for the control plane also. Right. So then what I am going to do, I am going to delete the cluster now. To delete the cluster, this is the command corps delete cluster and name. We will use some examples from here. This is the one, and then S3 state which we exported. Simply, finally, I am giving here hyphen y. Let's see whether it is deleting or not. Yes, it is started deleting it. So now you can see this EC2 instance which is created automatically. These things are will be deleted automatically by this command. So while we are creating this, this will create all other things. Like, 1 minute, let me show you before getting deleted. You can see here node app control plane for this volume has been created, and load balancer. So load balancer is deleted now. So same like that, everything will be available here. Whatever created, it will be deleted. You can see here one by one it will be reduced. Now we have almost 7 things pending to be deleted. Before that it is more than 7. Now it is again 7, so it is taking some time to delete. It will be deleted. So let's wait for a few more minutes to complete the deletion. Right, now it is deleted. Let's see, nothing is there in the validate cluster. In my AWS console also nothing will be there. I'm just searching for instance. So these all are terminated. Fine. Okay guys, so we have created the Kubernetes client server. Using that server we created the cluster, and finally we deleted the cluster also. Thank you.